But first to our national security. Now, I raised this before the break. It's now being threatened, we're told, by a green push to transition Australia to renewable energy. Now, as you may know, the vast majority, if not all of Australia's solar panels are constructed in China, often using material sourced from the Uyghur slave labour camps. Now, remember, Energy Minister Chris Bowen says we need to install, can you believe this, 22,500 watt solar panels every day for 8 years to get to his green dream. Now, the Australian's reporting today that these solar panels are reliant on something called smart inverters. Now, that they are designed to convert solar power into usable electricity for your house and businesses, and they can be remotely controlled. And questions are now being asked, what happens if these Chinese-made products, because they work on Wi-Fi, can be hacked by the Chinese Communist Party and shut off during any potential conflict? It's pretty serious stuff. Joining me to discuss this is the Director of Strategic Analysis Australia, Michael Shoebridge. Michael, what do you make of this concern? I mean, is it similar to our concerns that we had over Huawei and letting them in on the 5G network?
Well, Steve, it's got some similarities because, like the Huawei 5G technologies, solar panels are controlled by software systems and often Wi-Fi and internet connected systems. So just like the 5G technology would have been our communications backbone for the country, these solar panels and their controllers are usually internet connected and digitally controlled. So there is a security side to this issue.
So I'm technically pretty inept, but I gather from listening to James Patterson from the Coalition, who's been doing a lot of work on this about security cameras and such, is it possible that in a conflict, somebody somewhere in China could actually turn off our solar power? Is that what people are hinting at here?
Well, yes, you could disable the controller that converts the power generated on the solar panel into electricity that goes into your battery or powers your home. So you disrupt the software and you stop the panel from providing the power to your home battery or the grid. It's a similar problem with Chinese ownership of a lot of our electrical and gas distribution networks around the country. Our energy security has some major risks because of this Chinese control and ownership.
Yeah, it's quite surprising. You see these marketing names of various energy companies and they all sort of paint themselves as clean and green. And when you do the most basic of background checks on most of them, so many are owned by companies that are financed by and run out of China and beholden to the Chinese Communist Party, Michael.
Yes, well, it's part of the Chinese government's plan to centre the world economy in China and to create economic levers over the rest of the world. China wants to be able to use its economic and technological levers to get others to do what it wants. So it's really worth thinking about how do we diversify our renewable energy security so that we're not dependent on that one big provider, Communist China.
You just hope and pray that someone in Canberra says, well, why don't we start making these things ourselves? I've never been able to quite understand that. Let's talk about defence matters before we go. We've, of course, got off Queensland that huge War Games exercise, which is Tasman Sabre. And the Chinese have been warned to not have their spy ships watching what we're doing, but they do that every time, don't they?
Yes, so they're likely to send 2 intelligence collection ships to collect data about these exercises. It's getting harder for them to collect on these exercises because more and more nations are joining us in them. There are 13 participating militaries in this year's exercise, and it's over a 6,000 kilometre front. To give you some perspective, that's about 10 times the size of the battlefront in Ukraine. So the Chinese will have to choose very carefully where they put their 2 ships.
Tell us about the significance of this operation and the importance of that American warship being commissioned in Sydney Harbour, the Canberra. How important is that for Australia's relationship with the US?
Well, it just tells us that the alliance continues to strengthen and deepen. And this exercise, Talisman Sabre, that has 30,000 troops involved across all three services, air, land and sea, has 13 nations participating. For the first time, Germany's military is participating with a big South Korean contingent and a big Japanese contingent. This is all about showing that these powerful militaries can work together to deter conflict, and not just conflict in Europe, but conflict that might otherwise begin in our region. And right at the same time, Russia and China are holding their own military exercises in the Sea of Japan. So it's quite clear who we need to deter.
Yeah, I'm pleased that we're on the right side. Thank you, Michael. Michael Shoebridge there. Thanks very much for your time as usual. Always great to catch up.